But why don't we talk about an album that was actually at the top of the Billboard 100, which was Playboi Carti's "Whole Lot of Red," dropped on Christmas Day, which is it makes sense. Christmas very much associated with red, and this is something that we
A
kind of
lot of it.
known was coming for about a month. I think it was like November 23rd, something like that. There was like things on. I think he made an announcement about upcoming music being released, things like that. But still a bit of a surprise release, if you will. And yeah, I guess like maybe before we jump into this album, where are you at with Playboy Cardi as an artist, just in general? Are you a fan, Dave?
Well, that's the thing. It's a whole lot of red. Like it seemed to be there was real smoke with its imminent release, as you said, the past month or so. But it's an album whose that's release had many false starts and like had trended multiple times because people thought it was dropping and it didn't drop. And uh, Cardi leaks and snippets were like Uzis, but to an even greater degree, where there was just so much hype and expectation and appetite and demand for them, and all this excitement about Playboy Cardi. I think that specifically since his 2018 album Die Lit, where Cardi as an artist evolved his sound and really went hard on that quote baby voice, and like making some weird shit. Not all of it hits, but sometimes it does hit and it sounds unlike most other stuff. And he definitely found an audience with that stuff. And um, when I think back on Die Lit, I like some of it, not all of it, but some of those moments I think are really good, like Shuda with Uzi and Lean for Real with a great Skepta feature and RIP with that really memorable beat. Um, but honestly, I wasn't like super hyped on this because that loose single he officially put out last year, at me, that shit sucked. And like that really like hyped up song Pissy Pamper that was illegally uploaded to Spotify and went to the top of the viral 50 chart, even though it was not an official upload and eventually got deleted. Like I hear that song and I'm like, yeah, I don't like this either. I'm like, I think he was taking it too far for me. Cause I actually kind of liked him back in the beginning when it was just kind of like Cloudy Trap, nothing too crazy, like songs like Fetty and Broke Boy and Lost. I'm like, I like this shit. This is good.
Yep.
Now it's like it's completely unrecognizable. And then you listen to a whole lot of Red, and you can tell Cardi's just completely off the deep end. So he's definitely decreased in estimation for me. But what about you? You weren't the biggest Cardi fan in the first place.
Yeah, no, this is actually something you say a lot about, like some of the rock artists that I like. I'm trying to think of who specifically, but um, I just don't really jive with his voice. I just don't really find him like pleasurable to listen to. And then you kind of take this album, Whole Lot of Red, and I'm like, it felt very samey to me. If there was one thing that kind of stood out, it's like there's this like gothic feel to the whole thing that
Yeah,
just was very inaccessible to
he's a
me.
vampire now.
Yeah, and then you kind of bring that with some of the like lamest lyrics I think I've ever heard, and I'm
Oh
just
yeah.
was really unimpressed with this. Um, yeah, I could tell that when we were kind of texting about it off air that you obviously weren't really a fan of it either. What do you feel like made you not like it that
Well, that's
much?
the thing. It's like even if he's gonna completely commit to this baby voice stuff, the bars, the song construction still come across as really low effort and lazy,
Mhm.
which also kind of fits with his reputation. Like in 2018, I had tickets to see him and I actually just kind of sold, I actually sold them because I was like unimpressed from like what I had seen from that tour on social media. I was like, I don't need to fucking, I know what this is going to be like. And I didn't go. And then you think of like these songs, listen to these songs, listen to these bars. Like I think of a song like Metamorphosis, the one with Cuddy,
Mhm.
where his hook is just metamorphosis, metamorphosis over and over again. And it's like I don't know who that's for. Like even the
Right.
people that really like this shit still as just, not too deep, just kind of fun, a little different. I don't think that's good enough for that person either. Like and it still feels really low rent to me. And that sucks because when it was back in the day, like think of like his first album with Magnolia. Like that was like a really well constructed song. In New York, I'm Millie Rock is a great line, and like doesn't have great lines anymore. There's just it just feels like he's just the vibe, and all he knows how to be is the vibe, and there's no like I'm actually still a rapper. And like I know like listen to like Slayer, which I think is the biggest song off this album to this point. I'm a rock star. I could have joined Slayer. And like that's been the whole thing for a lot of these people that came up in SoundCloud is that they're rock stars. They're not rappers. And it's
Right.
like, but cardiac, I don't know what that means because rock stars gave a fuck about rock and roll. Like I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah. Just even from the second song, I know that this is necessarily Cardi, but this is the turnout we get from Kanye in his verse
Yeah,
is this is maybe one of the worst Kanye features we've had. And there's been a lot of them over the last
yeah.
couple of years.
Hmm.
But just a line that really stood out to me. You always asking for Buddha, you a Buddha pest. Just a line that I had to like literally pause the song and go back and make sure I heard it correctly because this is so bad.
I actually don't even mind that, but that's just because of the low bar most of Whole
Right.
Lotta Red is at.
Yeah, another song that I found the lyrics just to be really tough was on Punk Monk, where
Mm.
the end of the song just kept saying, "One thing I hate the most is friendly ass people." Okay, it's just doesn't like them. not
Well,
not a fan.
that's funny to me. Punk Monk might be my favorite song or song I dislike the least off a Whole Lot of Red, and that's because he's like in the way he can. Cardi is explaining a lot of his story, and he in the process he's name dropping a lot of other rappers
Right.
and like explaining his relationships to them. And I actually thought that was kind of cool to hear. Like I think Punk Monk like lyrically again grain of salt, but like lyrically it actually was attempting to achieve something besides
Mhm.
just being nonsense like some of these other songs. Like it's an hour-long album, but it's 24 tracks. And like
Yeah.
a lot of this shit, like again, it's like not much of a hook. Maybe it's repeating a few words, or like it's like barely a verse and it's all hook. Like a lot of these songs are just very half-baked and kind of reminds me of criticisms of XXX Tentacion, the same thing, where it's like
Mhm.
you might have these amazing ideas in your head about sonically and what you're trying to achieve and like you have the aesthetics to match it, but like this music is just not meeting that at this time. And
Well,
this just kind of feels like him devolving because Dialit's an album that was really heralded, and I'm not as high on as other people, but like some people like really ride for it and think it's like a landmark album for what it does.
mhm.
And I think it just makes it feel like a huge fluke at this point.
Right, and just to kind of circle back and close the door on Punk Monk, I understand what the point of him saying that at the end is, but I feel like there's just a better way to package it that doesn't sound so corny, or
Sure.
maybe just not to like repeat it over and over. And I think that's the thing is this album just felt very repetitive. It has that like I don't know if it's like a synth or what that noise was that kind of was
Mhm.
just kind of like driven throughout every single song, but it sounded almost like every song was trying to follow the same exact vibe and sonic pattern, and I just felt so bored listening to this. I was just like, this is such a poor showing, a slog
Yeah,
of an album, really.
definitely. I think the only time the production really stood out to me was on Vamp Anthem, where like I was like, okay, Vamp, yeah, they're like this is some Castlevania ass shit in the way it sounds. Not that Cardi does a lot to add to that, but I was like, okay, that beat actually like I kind of get the Halloween vibe we got going on here.
Yeah, it's going back to what you were saying though. It's kind of crazy that for a person who is so mysterious, and definitely adds to I think the demand and his allure. He can put out something that uh, to me feels very unmemorable and really not super interesting, even though he had some sort of theme he was trying to go off of, and it still goes to number one of the Billboard top
Mhm.
100, and he sold
Right.
the equivalent of 100,000 units in the first week. It's crazy the star power he has just in and of himself.
Yeah. So now the question is, what does the next album do? Because it makes sense that this album was streamed like a fuck ton,
Right.
especially in a relatively low streaming week that is the Christmas week.
Mhm.
So it makes sense people were checking this out. Will they check out the next one? You know, how big is his core
Yeah.
audience actually? We don't know. We'll see. Did he lose a lot of people with this? He certainly lost casual people, I would say. But are enough of his hardcore fans satisfied with this? Is this what they wanted? Will they still be there for him for his next album?
Yeah,
I do
it's
think
interesting.
Cardi might be one of the people that would be benefited by not waiting a super long time before dropping again,
Yeah,
versus letting it die out.
it's interesting because there's a lot of factors that can go into that, obviously. But I am interested to see how this album is kind of like lives on in like the moderate Cardi fans, not like the hardcore ones who are going to stand for anything, but the ones who really thought the early music was good, and if this can be palatable to them as well.